Hi, just thought just a few reflections really on the Ryder Cup. An impressive performance, and for those who might not be into their golf, it was a stunning, to quote what's in most of the papers, a stunning comeback. And in the papers you'll see phrases like a shell-shocked Medina, which is where it took place, implying that the Americans were in inverted commas shell-shocked. But from a psychological perspective, for me, there was a whole range of interesting issues around that. It wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing phrases like choked under pressure for the Americans. It's often a term that's rolled out when there is a surprise victory or a surprise collapse, and I use the term collapse advisedly because I'm just not sure whether something like choking under pressure would be appropriate. I don't know this. I'm just curious because when it comes down to, for example, a one-hole situation, choking under pressure refers to catastrophic decline in performance under pressure, and golf being the game that it is, you losing one particular hole does not, for me, constitute choking under pressure or catastrophic decline. It means you lost a hole. If, on the other hand, someone was well in front, if you like, and then over a period of time just couldn't hit the ball right, that would be much more comfortably located under the term choking under pressure. But no doubt, I mean, it just begs this question: is how do you separate the things out? Because undoubtedly there's pressure. So from a psychological perspective, if you go back and look at the highlights, think about things. The crowd. What influence did the crowd have? I mean, you could hear something USA, USA, and whilst that's what sport's about in many respects. The engagement with the audience. I think I saw one of the quotes from someone saying it's one of the few opportunities in golf where people can behave like other sports fans, shouting, cheering, and so on, and getting into that really emotional part of the situation, the sport. So impact of crowd, and how you might use that to your favour. If you're not on the USA side, so the crowd is predominantly hostile, how might you use your psychological skills to suck that in, to use that as a way of focusing and prevent it being something that's distracting. So I think there's some really interesting issues there. A lot of reference in the early morning news this morning talking about the impact of Jose Maria Olazábal's team talks. And I think I've heard the words inspirational, and there's reference to Severiano Ballesteros, and how they were doing it for him and how his presence was there. And at one time, I think I flicked over at one time and just saw in the sky so a reference to Sevi, and I wasn't sure how that actually happened. I must have missed the comment where they actually did that, whether some planes had done. I don't know how they did it anyway. So yeah, impact of confidence building, of vision creating, the importance of the coach. Then you look at the individual players and the notion of resilience. And again, if you get an opportunity, even if you're not into golf, but you're into sports psychology, just go back and look at the highlights. I'm sure you can get condensed highlights there. See what you can tease out in terms of body language, in terms of attitude. Ian Poulter the day before his performance, unbelievable in terms of his doggedness, his resilience, his focus. So I think for me what the Ryder Cup encapsulated was just a whole range of really interesting, potentially really interesting psychological issues. So I would urge you just to dip into it and have a think about it, and then start to think. Well, I suppose one of the really interesting things might be is, if you were a sports psychologist, what would you, what impact could you have? How could you have helped prepare the team for that? What lessons could you learn from that experience, and how might that impact upon your work with potential future players, not just in a golfing situation? because the issues are generic issues in many ways, and it just centraled on this highly public kind of event, which was a great event. So I think it's just it's very rich with possibilities in terms of understanding sports psychology, of thinking about sports psychology in a very practical way, and thinking about how it might inform practice or work with athletes and teams in highly competitive, highly pressured situations. Okay, just a few thoughts.